us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecy. He will keep the sayings of the renowned men, and where subtle parables are, he will seek out the secrets of grave sentences, and be conversant in dark parables. He shall serve among great men and appear before princes. He will travel through strange countries, for he hath tried the good and the evil among men. He will give his heart to resort early to the Lord that made him, and will pray before the Most High, and will open his mouth in prayer, and make supplications for his sins. The wisdom of Jesus, son of Sirach, chapter 39. Welcome, friends, and thank you for joining me in another live broadcast. I hope that all of you had a wonderfully blessed day and that it was beautiful wherever you may be, and that you had time and space to share a meal with your family and your loved ones, and that you were able to share collective memory that embraced you all in love and kindness, and that for the moment over a meal you were able to share the gratitude, the love for our Creator, for the abundance that He so givingly shares with all of us in taking care of all of our needs and providing for all of our necessities. Um, I, Thanksgiving is the only um, holiday or holy day. Well, of course, we keep all the Levitical feast days, but it is the only amongst the other traditions that the majority of people celebrate, that we keep. I don't find anything pagan or awkward about its origin. The think that the story of the pilgrim and the native people coming together and one helping the other to survive and to learn the ways of the land, and also to to praise the Most High in celebration and in gratitude with meal, that this is a tradition worthy of keeping and also of celebrating. And it is one that a lot of families are able uh, to prioritize and to come together yearly in reunion to share with one another the things that they've done and accomplished, and the things that have come up, the challenges, and to support each other, and to celebrate also the birth of grandchildren and new generations and the young people that join families in expanding their outreach and number. It is a beautiful thing, the whole process of um, perseverance, the persistence of our race to have the capacity to be blessed by the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit to be able to procreate in such manner and to continue the race. Um, and even though it's, we are here for a spiritual purpose, but still the family is the high representation of Elohim, as I've been talking about and stating and covering in the focus of my latest books, which, as I had promised, tomorrow we will be releasing the pre order of the first book on wisdom, being the feminine aspect of the triune Godhead. And so I hope that it will bless those of you that read and study and examine the material. Because I do think this is a beautiful revelation, especially for the time that we are in, and that it is, for whatever reason, one of those secrets that has evaded, which, because it just makes so much sense to me. It's just really common sense, and it's right there in the scriptures in the first chapter of Genesis. You go 26 verses in, and you are, um, uh, it's right in your face. You are undeniably um, shown that this is the manner of the Godhead, that Elohim is created humanity in their image, male and female, created he or they, them. But, anyways, this evening I'm going to cover a few other things as well. Wanted to talk about current events, also, um, as far as, a mention on cryptocurrencies and where I thought that was heading as well, because we do have unusual movement in the charts. And for those that don't follow the details of why things are happening or why things are unfolding in the manner that they are, Bitcoin has come down not because of its own failures or its own challenges, but because there are idiots in the space. And I specifically believe that FTX was set up purposely to fail, and that it was done so by an elitist group of families that, when you look into Sam Bankman-Fried, and also I forget the girl's name that was head of Alameda, that was set up as a sister company, and that they were using it to steal the funds of FTX, that they were brazen. They were not even trying to skim, but they stole everything without even trying to hide their steps or their procedures. And they were so lackadaisical about what they were doing in just abusing and using the funds and buying, $36 million mansion where all of your friends gather together and you live together and you're all having this platonic love fest. I mean, it's just insanity, the things that they were involved in. And then when you look at the symbolism, there is connected with the Alameda Company, the what looks to be um, the connection to pedophile rings. And that's just in the symbolism. The FBI released, some of that a long way back, and there seems to be in the iconography that kind of hidden in plain sight affiliation. And so there's something greater going on with all of this than we understand. And I think it has to do with the establishment of regulation. And also, if you look at the players in the way that, because FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, he was the largest donor to the Democratic Party under George Soros. He was the second, spent like, I don't know, 300 million, some obscene amount of money in supporting the midterm elections. And again, this was all done in the open, not even hush hush. I mean, so that when FTX collapsed, all of this came about uh, pretty easily for researchers, those that began to look into the story and have it unravel, unpeel like an onion. But the Democrats were, funding large donations to the Ukrainian military cause, which, all wars are shady because of the controlled opposition and that both sides, especially the people, suffer. And we know that, the governments of both the Ukrainian as well as Putin and the communists, that they're being propped up, um, and that the Freemasons, they have allegiance which crosses borders. They don't care about nationalistic pride or supporting one country over the other. They're all about establishing international agencies for controlling the affairs of nations. And so they want everybody to bow down to the United Nations. And so, then they speak about Albert Pike and his vision on the necessity of fomenting three world wars as a means to establish a one world order. This playbook for uniting the world through what was the League of Nations firstly, and now the United Nations, that this has been in effect for hundreds of years now, and that this has been the purpose of not only the conflagration of world wars and the destruction of so many people and so many lives, but that they are also, according to their own words, and again to the summation of the vision of Albert Pike in his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, who was the head of the Italian mafia at the time, that they were using agent provocateurs, but essentially people that were terrorists and mafia and hitmen, people that had no problem with the slaughter of innocents and of utilizing organized crime and criminal intent in order to bring about a certain outcome in regard to the whole Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, and also of bringing forth order out of chaos. That this is the intent of um, the powers that are, and it's unfortunate for the people because we just get drug along in uh, the production, that all the world's a stage, and that the theater of pain, war, and suffering that is foisted upon so many peoples of so many nations, that we're all pawns, seemingly, in the great contest that is being played out by the forces of light and darkness. And so when you look at the triangle of how the Democrats were sending abroad these millions of dollars in foreign aid, and the arming the Ukrainians, which I don't personally want the Ukrainians as a people to be slaughtered. But again, I know that this is, controlled opposition and that there's a larger purpose at play here. And that it has to do with, again, the Albert Pike's vision for the need to foment 3 world wars as a means to drive the agenda for bringing forth the Antichrist and for destroying the Christian nations and for putting at odds the Zionists, the synagogue of Satan in Israel, together with the radical Islamists, and to have Jerusalem be the cup of trembling amongst the nations. And this was prophetically fulfilled with the blooming of the fig tree. And this was the sign that Christ spoke about in Matthew 24, in Mark 13, Luke 21, and also in the Apocalypse of Peter. And especially in the Apocalypse of Peter, because That is the only gospel where the apostles specifically ask him, well, what is the sign of the fig tree? What are you talking about? What does that even mean? And then he receives explanation that the fig tree and the blooming of it and the reemergence of it and the sign, the season of its blooming and its growth and that which we are to recognize in season is the house of Israel and the regathering of the nation, which again occurred in 1947 with the declaration by the United Nations to establish Israel as a country, that it had been called Palestine prior to that time, and that the people, both Jews and Arabs and many other different people, they had all lived in that area in peace for thousands of years. But as I said, with the vision of Albert Pike and also with Zechariah 12, because this is without a doubt prophetic, and it is an occurrence which was allowed and condoned by the Most High for occurrence, and even was set up by the Ezekiel prophecy on the valley of the dry bones. And so all these things were meant to be as they are. And there's purpose for each step of each one of the dominoes that has fallen to bring us to where we are, because the Jubilees are also connected to, and most recently, to the establishment of Israel and also to the regathering of, the Balfour Declaration in 1917, 1967, the reunification of Jerusalem as the capital city in Jerusalem, which is also another occurrence that has never happened in the history of the nations of the world. That, as it says in Zechariah and by the other prophets, about a nation being born in a single day. That this was, again, the declaration that went forth and that was actualized, manifested on May 14th, 1948. And so, what is important and what is relevant to those of us that are alive right now is that this was the indication, the sign for us to recognize. Because Yahushua said of that generation that when these things occur, that this would be the generation which would witness his return and of the end of the age, or the end of the world as it is specified in the Apocalypse of Peter. And so I'd say that's pretty significant, pretty relevant, pretty important. And so when we return from break, which we're already at first break, this show time just seems to be accelerating, which that is also prophetic. Christ said that unless the days be shortened, there should be no flesh left. But for the elect's sake, the time and the days will be shortened. And so this is another, prophetic utterance. And that this is also significant as an indication of where we are. And without a doubt, the Spirit of the Most High is being poured out upon all flesh, and we have so many new revelations coming to light. I don't know if you caught the show that we did last night on the Maseroth and its connections to the 12 tribes of Israel and the patriarchs of Israel, the story of Israel, the redemption, the redeeming of Israel as a people and as a nation, that Yahushua, Yah's salvation, Emmanuel, God with us, he came to redeem the lost sheep. All right, we will be right back for a second commercial.
Don't wait until they tell you you are ready. Get in there. The world might say you are not allowed to yet. I waited a long time out in the world before I gave myself permission to fail. Please, don't even bother asking. Don't bother telling the world you are ready. Show it. Do it. Raise the rest of your life to meet you. Don't search for defining moments, because they will never come. The moments that define you have already happened, and they will already happen again.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite feeds our body with the right nutrients to keep us healthy. Just listen to what Arthur has to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about, 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. And I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Jim Ram, retired. In early 2012, I was facing a laundry list of chronic health conditions that my physician was telling me were incurable. I knew there had to be a better way, and I learned how I could reverse every one of my ailments with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. In just a few months, I was able to reverse high blood pressure, gastric reflux, sleep apnea, arthritis, degenerative disc disease, heart arrhythmia, AFib, and many more. And I've lost over 70 pounds and kept it off. Now I'm hosting a radio program that's dedicated to helping my listeners do the same. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're sick of being used as an ATM by your doctor, then you'll want to tune into the Your DIY Health radio program here on Truth Frequency Radio every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern and 6 to 8 a.m. Pacific.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR. Frequency Radio.
And in those days, there were giants in the land. And the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we've lost. And indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall, and the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past, time our lapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien grass. They reacted this way, they're so desperate for
All right. Welcome back, everybody, for a second portion. This, as I said, the time in the show seemed to just be accelerating quickly. But I hope that all of you are, that we have this day of peace and celebration. And I love days like this. Yesterday it was, I think almost 70 degrees here in Georgia, and so warm and so beautiful. You have the windows open and the gentle breeze coming through, just cool enough to keep the heat down a little bit, but the sun was bright enough and warm enough to keep the chill at bay. And I was able to sit outside with the family, and we had done Thanksgiving then yesterday, and Justin and Joy and the kids went to celebrate with his grandmother today, and so I'm grateful to them that they were able to do that, and such joy. Grandkids are such joy, and it's such an incredible blessing to watch the young ones grow up. That everything is fun, just a moment wherever you may be. It's like when you were young and stomping mud puddles. That that was great joy. But anyways, going back to the topic of the show, and with regard to the signs and the seasons. And first, I want to make mention, with again, completing the story of the millions of dollars that were openly laundered by the Democrats to the high level Ukrainian government, and which were then sent back in donation to FTX. That these three components were all that was necessary for the Democrats to receive a large, and I am not in favor of the Democrats or the Republicans or a two-party system. I really feel for the independents, because they get shafted and they get no funding and they get no credibility, and they're just left in the in limbo, in the middle land of really between what seems to be paradise and hell, and you pick whichever one you want to decide is more closely associated to which. But I'm just saying, again, that the two-party system is controlled and that politics, the whole paradigm of left right, this is without a doubt a creation of the globalists, and it's a simple solution for establishing minorities, pinning them up against one another, and of also easily funding and controlling them in movement from top down, because that's what they do. And they pour in money in whatever way they can in order to fight for and to shift the balance of politics, which is all really still just an illusion, because it doesn't matter who is controlling the. I mean, in some manner it does, but in reality it really doesn't, because they're all playing for the same fascists that are controlling the transnational corporations and the elitist money controlling families of the central Federal Reserve banking system, which prints the money and loans it to the governments at interest. They're catering to these fascists. And that's the way it's been for a very long time. And when you look at even the establishment of the Federal Reserve System, which I recommend people check out a documentary called The Money Masters, where this individual, he's an economist, I believe, but he is able to historically to track down the story of the struggle that the true patriots and Americans like um, Andrew Jackson, who was, they tried to kill him numerous times because he was standing in the way of the establishment of a central bank here in America. And even the story of the Titanic, which most of you don't understand, probably know little about, that the story of the Titanic, and I did a show on this. I wish I could remember the name of it. But I'm going to post a link to it once I find it. But I did a show on the story of the Titanic and how this was not only a massive case of insurance fraud, and that the Titanic had a sister ship called the Olympia, and that the one was caught up in a a crash and had skewed the whole side, and had been in such an accident that it was actually listing to one side and was not even able to sail straight, but that the owners of the White Star Lines, which just happened to be these, bankers, I think it was J.P. Morgan, and if I'm correct, I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I covered this, but they decided that they were gonna scrap this boat. And not only were they gonna scrap it, they were gonna use it as a way to destroy the opposition in America to the central banks. And so they dressed up the opulence of the maiden voyage of the Titanic from England to America, and they had this Freemason captain get on board with the idea that he was going to take it to the bottom of the ocean. And individuals like Jacob Astor and Guggenheim, and who was the other lady? I can't remember, but three of the richest people in America, and all of them opposed to the central banks and the establishment of a central bank here in America. They happened to be on board the Titanic when it was run into whatever it could be run into, in iceberg in this case. uh, and there could have been other shady dealings, like the way that the Lusitania had bombs blow off in the middle of its cargo, and in order to start the Spanish War, things like that. I mean, you have false flag events happening all throughout the history of the workings and the establishment of certain agendas and powers here in America. And it's this way even today. I mean, even, 9/11 was a declaration of war on the entire world by the terrorists that have been taking oath, blood oath, mind you, spitting on the cross, uh, masturbating in coffins to tell their secrets. We're talking about the 322 Skull and Bones and Yale secret societies, and those that have groomed presidents and vice presidents and senators and justices of the Supreme Court. These groups, even those that are called the family. There's an entire movie about the family secret society there. I believe it's in Washington, D.C. That is interconnected to the whole political system and is easily able to position certain members, certain people of their aristocracy into positions of serving political leaders, becoming their secretary, their servants, their taskmasters, and those people have a lot of power. It, in my mind, reminds me of the story of Joshua and how when the Hivites had played like they were a people from far away location, that they had come to over time and distance to meet with Joshua and to make allegiance with them, that they said that they were this people from a far off nation. Come to find out that they were usurpers, that they were playing out, and that they had openly lied to Joshua, who he and the princes of Israel had spared them, made them servants to the Levites, and they then became the Pharisees and took over the the task of the Levitical priesthood in guiding the religious fervor and of establishing the spiritual laws governing the tribes and the people, the Israelites, as a nation who should have been and wholly dedicated unto serving the Most High. But of course, we know they wanted a king, they demanded a king, they were given Saul, and how corrupt he was. And then David was brought to authority in the establishment of the Davidic line of kings, that Yahushua would be part of the stem of Jesse, that Isaiah spoke about, that he would be the true King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Savior, the Messiah that would be brought forth out of this line and out of this declaration by the people that they wanted to be ruled over by a king. But they were given a suffering servant, one who would give his life for his friends. And would fulfill the Levitical holy days in being the Passover lamb without spot or blemish, that would be sacrificed, and whose blood we would be atoned and granted forgiveness of sins. And just as during the Exodus, the Passover lamb would spare the Israelites from being touched in that time by the angel of death and having their children and their generations slaughtered, so are we spared from the authority of the angel of death over the destiny of our lives and of our eternity, because we are saved through the Messiah, and we are granted salvation, which is the most extraordinary gift when you really come to understand the profundity of it all. And oh, and a couple other things, because the name of the show, and I forgot to cover this in the last one, in the first segment that I did on Bitcoin, drought, war, and the signs of the times. We spoke about the reasons for the war in Crimea and in Ukraine, and how there are, and also in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places, that many nations are being targeted because they have on them very ancient sites and ancient cultures, civilizations, remnants of ancient technologies and supernatural, um, occultic technology, which the lay people just do not understand. In the same manner that in World War II, you had Austria and also Poland targeted by the Nazis, and that they were specifically invading Austria in order to gain access to a particular museum that was at that time housing the spear of Longinus, which is the spear that he used to pierce the side of Christ, and which brought forth the water and the blood. and that this was the spear of destiny, and they believed in their occultic belief that he who was in possession of such an item, that it would grant that individual or that group the power to control the fate and the destiny of the world. And the elites believe in such things even now. They, and when I talk about, like we talked about um, the Romanian pyramid that was connected to the Egyptian one. I did the shows with Peter Moon on the Hall of Records, the giant Hall of Records found in the Romanian pyramids. Well, there are things like that that are occurring and happening, being discovered all the time. We're just not privy to them. We hear about them slightly in, quick segments on YouTube where somebody leaks a story. I talked about even how during World War II that there was a Operation Tabarand that was performed by the British SAS, and they were sent to spy on the Nazi SS that was building New Schwabenland in the Antarctic regions. And that they discovered that they were building this base on an already pre-existent ancient structure that somebody had built in the ancient past. And so, especially in the Arctic and the Antarctic regions where the ice is melting in rapid fashion, if you can call it that. I mean, it's dissipating. And without a doubt, this is also prophetic, and it's not because humans are overusing carbon or petroleum products. I'm not saying that that is helping and that there's nothing to the so-called greenhouse effect or whatever, but I know without a doubt that in scripture the Most High says and declares, and also Peter has stated that this world at the end of this age, which we are near now, that this age is going to die by fire, that the earth and the heavens are going to be burned up and recreated, and that water is going to become a rare commodity. And not only that, but we are seeing signs of this even now, which should be an indication to all of you that, that the scriptures are absolutely 100% accurate. And that the things that are revealed in the apocalyptic manuscripts that were written specifically for the fig tree generation of whom we are, they should be considered by us that are alive now. Because again, we are that generation that is told that we would see the fulfillment of all things. And we would see the return and also the close of the age, the end of the world, which I'll read that passage when we return from the next break. But the drought is without a doubt evident and is spreading across the nations. And that here in America, Lake Mead, which is one of the largest reservoirs ever to be created, as being the downriver from the Hoover Dam, and also the upper, the Glenwood Canyon Reservoir, that these reservoirs are at their lowest levels since the creation of them, and that the drought is spreading across and affecting many nations, and that there is circumstance affecting everybody equally. All right, we'll be right back for a second there.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
Then sang Moses and the children of Israel.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work, and Praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. With our newest addition to the family, Ezra, we also added Enoch's Judgment of the Giants to this prophecy series. We're excited to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out sacredwoodpublishing.com/collections/children's-store.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour, second portion. And as I had stated before we went to break, I'm going to read just a little bit, and I wanted to bring up something from the Apocalypse of Peter, which, for those of you that are scholars, students of Scripture, and that you've read especially the King James version of the Bible, you know that in the gospel accounts, when the apostles as a group were gathered and had asked Yahushua about his second advent and also the close of the age, that he provided answer that we can find and study in Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13. And that these three chapters are probably some of the favorites of all the gospel accounts and all the scriptures written, because again, they are specific to the questions that were asked by the apostles of the end times. And so they provide great detail and great accuracy in regard to the events that would lead and be indicative of those times. But what a lot of people are not aware of and don't know is that in the Apocalypse of Peter, which is one of those apocalyptic texts that we published together in compilation with many others in what is the Great Commission 3, the apocalyptic and end time narratives that are specific to the fig tree generation. In that particular book, there's numerous 20, 30 manuscripts which are specific to the end of days and that were written to the fig tree generation. Just as the book of Enoch, when he answers, that this writing is for a distant and remote generation, that these other manuscripts were in similarity written in that regard, and that we have literally 1/3 of all scripture written that is prophetic and that is an elaboration on the end of days, on the great and terrible day of the Lord, and to the end time, to the coming and the reign of the Antichrist, what is called the tribulation of the last 7 years, the great tribulation of the last 3.5 years of the reign of the Antichrist. These things are specific to and particular to this particular study. And so I know that we are drawing a lot of new listeners, and that many of you, having discovered us, have not yet had chance to go through all of the archives. And so a lot of what I talk about is still yet unfamiliar to you. And so that's why I think, because so many new people are finding and discovering us, that it's important for me occasionally to go back into review some of the things that are more commonplace to those of you that have been studying with us for quite some time and that are more familiar with my books and my works and the things that I've been talking about for decades now. But this is, one of those times, one of those occasions, and one of those teachings. And it's still relevant. I mean, every time I read from this, I learn something. And so it's not that, it's going to be in any manner a waste of time. It's beneficial for all of us, in the same manner that reading Matthew 24 over and over and over. I mean, you could do this daily and still find the study of it to be relevant and meaningful. So let's do that. All right. So the second coming of Christ and resurrection of the dead, which Christ revealed unto Peter, who died because of their sins, for that they kept not the commandment of God their Creator. And he, Peter, pondered thereon, that he might perceive the mystery of the Son of God, the merciful and lover of mercy. And when the Lord was seated upon the Mount of Olives, his disciples came unto him. And we besought and entreated him severely, and prayed him, saying unto him, Declare unto us what are the signs of thy coming and of the end of the world, that we may perceive and mark the time of thy coming, and instruct them that come after us, unto whom we preach the word of thy gospel, and whom we set over in thy church, that they, when they hear it, may take heed to themselves and mark the time of thy coming. And our Lord answered us, saying, Take heed that no man deceive you, and that ye be not doubters, and serve other gods. Many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ. Believe them not, neither draw near unto them. For the coming of the Son of God shall not be plain, but as the lightning that shineth from the east unto the west, so will I come upon the clouds of heaven with a great host in my majesty, with my cross going before my face, will I come in my majesty, shining sevenfold more than the sun. Will I come in my majesty with all my saints, mine angels, mine holy angels. And my Father shall set a crown upon my head, that I may judge the quick and the dead, and recompense every man according to his works. So here we see, just really quickly, because this is a slight variation. If you're only used to reading Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, there is slight variations to this particular manuscript, and that's why I wanted to, share it, bring it forth for you. Specifically in the first verse where it says, "Take heed that no man deceive you," and this part is not found in the others, "and that ye be not doubters and serve other gods." Very, very important point, because right now we are in the age where there is a reemergence of the Babylonian gods, and that there is a steady influx of what is, it's the ancient alien religion is really, the only thing that, and that would summarize that there is a movement where the ancient aliens are being celebrated as the gods, and that they were the true creators of humanity, as many people are being led to believe, and that people are running away from the traditional religions, Christianity, Islam, others, to embrace those religions which celebrate and worship a pantheon of these ancient gods and goddesses, these entities that were worshipped in ancient times: the feathered serpent, the dragons of old, the Anunnaki, the Egyptian gods, the pantheon, the unholy trinity of Ishtar, Enki, Enlil. The same with Osiris, Horus, and Isis, Inanna. There's so many different names for the same gods and goddesses because they were the same characters. And these characters are re-emerging, and there is a great deal of reverence being granted to them. They're being worshipped in blood, in prayer, and in abomination, because the elites have always been involved in this kind of depravity. They know without a doubt they are involved in Satanism, Luciferianism, the worship of devils. They know. They conjure demons. That is what they call, magic and the occult. They know exactly what they're engaged in. But the people on the low side of it that are just dabblers, that think it's fun to play with Ouija boards and to call forth shadows and spirits and to experience things that are supernatural, they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And so this is coming about. This is now the fastest growing religion in the world. And so, anyways, Christ is coming with judgment, because the whole war, the great contest, the enmity between the seed lines, it's going to be ended with his return. With his second advent, yes, there's going to be still one more where Satan is loose for a little season. There's going to be one more trick, one more leading astray of humanity. But for the most part, when he returns at the end of the age and at the end of this 6,000 year before the Sabbath, before the millennial rest, which I believe is after, the appearance of the Antichrist, that is the trigger that will lead us into tribulation and great tribulation, the final 7 years. And, who knows? I mean, the Antichrist could be on the scene even now, just covertly working like Oz behind the mask. We don't know. Things are progressing rapidly. The hour is late, without a doubt. So let us continue. And ye, take ye the likeness thereof, and learn a parable from the fig tree. So soon as the shoot thereof is come forth, and the twigs grown, the end of the world shall come. So Christ is here in the Apocalypse of Peter, associating the blooming of the fig tree with the end of the world. And in no other gospel do the apostles, Matthew, Mark, or Luke, or any of the other nine, ask him, well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What's the fig tree? And how is this associated to the end of the world? But here in the Apocalypse of Peter, it says, and I, Peter, answered and said unto him, interpret unto me concerning the fig tree, whereby we shall perceive it. For throughout all its days doth the fig tree send forth shoots, and every year it bringeth forth its fruit for its master. What then meaneth the parable of the fig tree? We know it not. And so, thank God for Peter to ask the Messiah, the Master, the Rabbi, the teacher, what he's talking about, what he actually means with the parable of the fig tree. I mean, that would have been my question too. And for those of you that don't know, my first name, my real name, is Peter. Zen is the name that I publish all my books in, because that happened to be when I started writing, that was the name that a lot of my students had given me when I was teaching them, and I had passed a book around to them called Zen and the Martial Arts, and so it stuck. And my first 3 books that I published were poetry books and not on scripture. And so anyways, just a little story for you. And so this is exactly what I would have asked as well. And I think probably you would have as well. And so let's see and look at what then the Master, the Messiah, the Lord, what he mentions. Because this is important, and this is going to lead into something that I'm going to talk about with the droughts. And the Master Lord answered and said unto me, understandest thou not that the fig tree is the house of Israel? So very clearly, and without, even responding in parable, he tells them that the fig tree is the house of Israel. And then he says, even as a man that planted a fig tree in his garden, and it brought forth no fruit. And he sought the fruit thereof many years, and when he found it not, he said to the keeper of his garden, Root up this fig tree, that it make not our ground to be unfruitful. And the gardener said unto God, Suffer us to rid it of weeds, and dig the ground round about it, and water it. If then it bear not fruit, we will straightway remove its roots and out of the garden, and plant another in place of it. Now remember, the fig tree also is a representation of the people of Israel, the two tribes, the stems, the house of Israel. Hast thou not understood that the fig tree is the house of Israel? So he reiterates again here that the fig tree is the house of Israel. Verily I say unto thee, when the twigs thereof have sprouted forth in the last days. So the fig tree is the house of Israel. It's connected to the last days. It's connected to the blooming of the fig tree, and it's coming forth, showing that summer is nigh. All this is being expounded here. Verily I say unto thee, when the twigs thereof have sprouted forth in the last days, then shall feigned Christ come and awake expectation, saying, I am the Christ that am now come into the world. So we're going to see fake Christ. Others declaring that they are Christ, that they are Yahushua, that they have returned. And already we see this. I mean, like if you search for even people that are leading congregations that say they are Jesus Christ or that they are Yeshua or Yahushua, you're going to find that there's cults in Miami, in South America, in Australia, that people are teaching and leading entire flocks of people that they are the Christ. And they are making these declarations. But let us continue. And when they, Israel, shall perceive the wickedness of their deeds, they shall turn away after them and deny him whom our fathers did praise, even the first Christ whom they crucified, and therein sinned a great sin. So Israel will deny the Messiah as they have and as they are currently doing, and this will continue. Why? Because they're going to accept the Antichrist. And so you know this is not the Messianic Jews, the Torah observant Jews or Hebrews or Israelites that are in the land. But this is the synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not. And then it says, but this deceiver is not the Christ. And when they reject him, he shall slay with the sword, and there shall be many martyrs. Then shall the twigs of the fig tree, that is the house of Israel, shoot forth. Many shall become martyrs at his hand. And listen, this is very important here. Enoch and Elias shall be sent to teach them that this is the deceiver which must come into the world and do signs and wonders to deceive. And so the two twigs, then shall the twigs of the fig tree, that is the house of Israel, shoot forth. Is it possible that the shooting forth of this fig tree and the house of Israel, that it's connected here to Enoch and Elias? I wonder, and I don't know with any certainty, But Enoch and Elias, were they somehow connected to both, the two twigs that are a representation of the house of Israel? I would think that to be the north and the south kingdom. But we also see that in the story of Enoch and Elias, Enoch was married and Elijah was not. If I'm correct on that, that one was said to be married and bore children and the other did not. But both of them died, or did not die, but were raptured, so to speak. And they would come back at the end of days during the reign of the Antichrist to convict the Antichrist. And they would be murdered because they are the two witnesses of Revelation 11. And they're going to be left slaughtered in the streets of Jerusalem for 3.5 days. And so let us continue. And then we'll deliberate. Actually, we'll pick it up on the other side. We'll be right back for 5 seconds.
Resolve says I will. Two of the most powerful words in the language. I will. Benjamin Disraeli once said, nothing can resist a human will that will stake even its existence on the extent of its purpose. Shortly put, I'll do it or die. See, that's powerful. That could be the day that turns your life around. The world has a strange way of stepping aside when somebody says, I'll do it or die. The man says, I will climb the mountain. They've told me it's too high, it's too far, it's too rocky, it's too difficult, it's never been done before, but it's my mountain, I will climb it. Pretty soon you'll see me waving from the top. Or dead on the side, because I ain't coming back. The best definition I ever got from the word resolve came from a little junior high girl in Foster City, California, up north. Promise yourself you will never give up.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Remote viewing reveals Tataria history, starseeds, lightworkers, and indigos. Join me on the Nikki Colombo Show. It's time to reclaim our true history, our true timelines, our cosmic heritage. And remember to be humble, for you are made of earth, and to be noble, for you are made of stars.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. We did have a question in the chat room from Yokana, the Seeker. And the question is, I know he goes off lunar Shabbats, but was wondering if he started a new month with the full moon or the sliver sighting. And the answer to that question is with the waxing crescent. And it just so happens that tonight is the appearance of the waxing crescent and the Kadesh of the month of Kislev. And of course, we know that the Israelites did not use Babylonian names for the months, but they only did so because they lived in Babylon and assimilated a lot of, even Aramaic was assimilation of the language of that time in that day. And that they translated their scriptures, that Ezra, when he appealed to the Most High to give them the power to bring forth all of what had been burnt and lost, which was everything, all the teachings, all the, the beginning to the end, the knowledge that the prophets had brought forth, everything was lost. But Ezra and 4 other scribes it was 4 or 5 scribes. They were given this ruby colored water and the, speedy, the ability to write very quickly. And they wrote 270 some manuscripts that brought forth the lost teachings. And these were written in Aramaic. But anyway, so tonight, yes, is the Rosh Chodesh of the month of Kislev. We'll be creating, and I'll be realigning according to my discussions with both Diane Culver, who is the author of Yahweh's Unique Timepiece Explained, and Troy Miller, who is the moderator of and the webmaster of creationcalendar.com. And that both of them did intercalate this year. And so in speaking with 3 witnesses, we'll be adjusting our calendar for the beginning of January. We're going to be releasing the 2023 Enochian Lunar Solar Calendar. I'll be working on that for the next couple of weeks after the release of this first book on wisdom as the feminine aspect of the Triune Godhead. That once I'm done with that, I'll spend the last 2 weeks of the year finishing up the second book of the series, and then we'll release that as well. But the calendar will be available for pre-order in next month. And again, I am no professional. That my friends Diane and Troy have been doing this for a lot longer. And so, we make mistakes, and we often have the calendar go off by one day because we'll have repeated back-to-back 30-day lunar months. And it's just, what it is. The synodic month averages 29.541 days. And that slight over the average of exactly 29.5 skews the precision as far as being able to, broadcast or predict months into the future the exact timing and the unfolding of the calendar. And that's just the way it is. That's why we have to adjust, and we do publish 2 calendars a year, because we believe that God's true calendar begins in the month of Nisan, that he said in the Exodus that the beginning of the year will be in the month of Abib or Nisan. And so the Kadesh, which occurred tonight, according to, and I did share with you a website that you can go to keep up with this. Let me paste it again. It's called thetruthofyahweh.org. And this is the sighting of the sliver of the moon from people all over the world. And it is different. That Kadesh will occur for some people on the 25th and others on the 24th, which makes the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd, interestingly enough, that, these are the real days when Sabbath actually occurs. And so the month, according to the Gregorian calendar, will actually be in alignment with the lunar months. So that's pretty interesting for the next coming month. So anyways, that's not exactly true, brother. There's no way that a full moon starts the new month. Even if you go look at the word Kadash, where we get the word Kodesh, it is the moon repairing, fixing, and becoming full that determines Kadesh. And also you can go to, and I'll share with you a couple of verses since you're asking about this currently. Let me see here. That in, oh goodness, the book of the wisdom of Jesus, son of Sirach, it covers in there that oh, here it is. I'll read this for you as well. And then I'll get back to what I was saying. The splendor of the moon. It is the moon that marks the changing seasons, governing the times, their everlasting sign. From the moon comes the sign for festal days, a light that wanes when it completes its course. The new moon, as its name suggests, renews itself. How marvelous it is in this change, a beacon to the hosts on high, shining in the vault of the heavens. And as I said, Kadesh, which is the new moon, by implication, monthly, the new moon. The word Kadash, a primitive root, to be new, causatively, to rebuild, renew, repair. And I'll share with you a couple other witnesses as well. That in the book of Enoch, it tells us in verse 72.5, at that time it appears and becomes to you the beginning of the month. 30 days it is with the sun in the gate from which the sun goes forth. Half of it is in extent 7 portions, 1/2 and the whole of its orb is void of light, except a 7th portion out of the 14th portions. So that is a waxing crescent. 1/7 portion out of the 14. And the 14 takes it from waxing crescent to full, and then from full to being void of light. But continuing, and in a day it receives a 7th portion, or half that portion of its light. Its light is by sevens, by 1 portion, and by the half of a portion it sets with the sun. And when the sun rises, the moon rises with it, receiving half a portion of light. On that night, when it commences its period previous to the day of the month, the moon sets with the sun. And on that night, it is dark in its 14th portions, meaning that it's a lunar conjunction. It's a dark moon. That is in each half. But it rises on that day with 1/7 portion precisely, and in its progress declines from the sun, the rising of the sun. During the remainder of its period, its light increases to 14 portions. So it tells us right there again in Enoch and also in the wisdom of Jesus, son of Sirach, that the waxing crescent is the day Kadesh, the time of the new moon. And that is the beginning of the month. And we also see that I'll read one more for you. This is Ezekiel the tragedian. This month shall be the first month of your year, in which I'll lead you to another land, which to the Hebrew fathers I did swear, and say to all the peoples, in this month on full moon's eve, the paschal sacrifice to God present, and touch the doors with blood, which sign the fearsome angel shall pass by. So here on full moon's eve, which is the 14th of Nisan, this is when Passover occurs. And the unleavened bread, the feast of unleavened bread, and also the festival of Sukkot, they always occur on the 15th of the month. And that is because that is the timing of the full moon. And it's the best time to have a festival and a celebration because it's beautiful to be under the full moon. And so there's 3 confirming witnesses for you, brother. All right, let us continue back to what I was doing and what I was reading. All right, back to what we were talking about with the end times. And specifically with the return of the Enoch and Elijah, the 2 witnesses of Revelation 11. They, without a doubt, are coming to convict the Antichrist. And therefore shall they that die by his hand be martyrs, and shall be reckoned among the good and righteous, martyrs who have pleased God in their life. So, again, we see in Revelation 11 that the 2 witnesses killed by those who've given their power unto the beast, that this is celebrated. Let me continue with a few more as to the details of what will occur and what, shall be at that time. And he showed me in his right hand the souls of all men, and on the palm of his right hand the image of that which shall be accomplished at the last day. The last day, this is when rapture occurs, the catching away. On the very last day, before the wrath of God is poured out on the wicked and those not written into the books of life. And this is also the last chance for you to be, numbered with the elect. And how the righteous and the sinners shall be separated, and how they do that are upright in heart, and how the evildoers shall be rooted out until all eternity. We beheld how the sinners weep in great affliction and sorrow, until all that saw it with their eyes wept, whether righteous or angels, and he himself also. And I asked him, and I said unto him, Lord, suffer me to speak thy word concerning the sinners. if it were better for them if they had not been created. And the Savior answered and said unto me, Peter, wherefore speakest thou thus, that not to have been created were better for them? Thou resistest God. Thou wouldest not have more compassion than he for his image? For he hath created them and brought them forth out of not being. Now because thou hast seen the lamentation which shall come upon the sinners in the last days, therefore is thine heart troubled. But I will show thee their works, whereby they have sinned against the Most High. Behold now what shall come upon them in the last days, when the day of God and the day of the decision of the judgment of God cometh. From the east unto the west shall all the children of men be gathered together before my Father that liveth forever. And he shall command hell to open its bars of adamant and give up all that is therein. And the wild beasts and the fowl shall he command to restore all the flesh that they have devoured, because he willeth that men should appear. For nothing perisheth before God, and nothing is impossible with him, because all things are his. For all things come to pass on the day of decision, on the day of judgment, at the word of God, and as all things were done, when he created the world and commanded all that is therein, and it was done. Even so shall it be in the last days. For all things are possible with God. And therefore saith he in the scripture, Son of man, prophesy unto the several bones, and say unto the bones, bone unto bone, and joints, sinew, nerves, flesh and skin and hair, thereon and soul and spirit. And soul and spirit shall the great Uriel give them at the commandment of God. For him hath God set over the rising again of the dead at the day of judgment. Behold and consider the corns of wheat that are sown in the earth. As things dry and without soul do men sow them in the earth, and they live again and bear fruit, and the earth restoreth them as a pledge entrusteth unto it. And this that dieth, that is sown as seed in the earth, shall become alive and be restored unto life, is man. How much more shall God raise up on the day of decision them that believe in him and are chosen of him, for whose sake he made the world? And all things shall the earth restore on the day of decision, for it also shall be judged with them, and the heaven with it. And this shall come at the day of judgment upon them that have fallen away from faith in God, and that have committed sin. Floods, cataracts of fire shall be let loose, and darkness and obscurity shall come up and clothe and veil the whole world. And the waters shall be changed and turned into coals of fire, and all that is in them shall burn. And the seas shall become fire. Under the heaven shall be a sharp fire that cannot be quenched, and floweth to fulfill the judgment of wrath. And the stars shall fly in pieces by flames of fire, as if they had not been created. And the powers in the firmament of heaven shall pass away for lack of water, and shall be as though they had not been. And the lightnings of heaven shall be no more, and by their enchantment they shall affright the world. And so soon as the whole creation dissolveth, the men that are in the east shall flee into the west. Unto the east they that are in the south shall flee to the north, and they that are in the south. And in all places shall the wrath of a fearful fire overtake them, and an unquenchable flame driving them shall bring them unto the judgment of wrath, unto the stream of unquenchable fire. And in unquenchable fire that floweth, flaming with fire, and when the waves thereof part, themselves one from another, burning, there shall be a great gnashing of teeth among the children of men. Then shall they all behold me coming upon an eternal cloud of brightness, and the angels of God that are with me shall sit upon the throne of my glory, and I shall sit upon the throne of my glory at the right hand of my heavenly Father, and he shall set a crown upon mine head. And when the nations behold it, they shall weep, every nation apart. Then shall be commanded them to enter into the river of fire, while the works of every one of them shall stand before them, to every man according to his deeds. As for the elect that have done good, they shall come unto me, and not see death by the devouring fire. But the unrighteous, the sinners, and the hypocrites shall stand in the depths of darkness that shall not pass away. And their chastisement is the fire. And the angels bring forward their sins and prepare for them a place wherein they shall be punished forever, everyone according to his transgressions. Uriel, the angel of God, shall bring forth the souls of those sinners, everyone according to his transgression. Perhaps this so that was just a commentary. Hold on. According to his transgression, who perished in the flood, and of all that dwell in all idols, in every molten image, and every object of love, and in pictures, and of those that dwell on all hills and in stones and by the wayside, whom men called gods, they shall burn them with them, the objects in which they dwelt, and their worshippers, in everlasting fire. And after that, all of them with their dwelling places are destroyed. They shall be punished eternally. Then shall men and women come unto the place prepared for them. By their tongues wherewith they have blasphemed, the way of righteousness shall they be hanged up. There spread under them unquenchable fire, that they escape it not. All right, you can continue. It goes on, detailing the punishments of the magicians, the whoremongers, the blasphemers, all those that are numbered with the wicked and condemned. But without a doubt, this end of this age is going to end by fire. Before Christ comes again and sets its foot on the earth, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And this is all spoken about in Revelation. I cover this in great detail in my books and the work that I've done. And so in the next show, in the next one I do on this series, I'll explain about the water and the drought, because this is a certain indicator that, the climate change that the United Nations wants to blame on humans, God is bringing this forth, and it's going to be part of the judgment at the end of the age. And those not written into the books of life are going to receive a judgment of fire. That this world, this age, is going to be burned up. There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth in preparation for the coming of Messiah. That the earth is going to be recreated new and smooth and white, snow white, like a tabletop. And this you can find in the Revelation of St. John the Theologian. I'm sorry, Tammy, I've never seen Stranger Things, so I'm not sure of what you're talking about. But I will say, and she asked me, do you think the symbolism that they show us through Hollywood movies and, Netflix episodes is truthful, and I do believe they're, they are privy to some things that most people may not know. They are hoarders of the secrets. They believe themselves to be the chosen one, even though they are not. All right, thank you, everyone. Good night. Be blessed.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.